වැඩියෙන් භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, changing the guard. The government announces changes to a key ministry, with BASIL RAJAPAKSA taking on the country's finances. Leading the way, top food industry consultant says Sri Lanka's organic push an exciting prospect for EU consumers.
President has decided to be 100% organic, give confidence to European consumers. I would urge you as a country to use that in all your marketing.
A global standard. Sri Lanka calls on UN members to reach a consensus on its anti-terror blueprint to avoid bullying of smaller nations.
A modern and updated strategy cannot be pushed on states nor decided on might or by a group of states, large or small.
Over the horizon, the governor of the central bank says that the signs are good for Sri Lanka's economy this year and the next.
Based on information available, a better than previously expected growth performance is expected for the first quarter.
All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 8th of July 2021.
කට උත්තර නැති වෙන්න කලින් සිග්නල් ඩීප් ක්ලීන් එකකට මාරු වෙන්න.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando. In your top stories for tonight, Basil Rajapaksa made his parliamentary comeback today and took oaths as the new Minister of Finance before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa as well. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, who previously held the Finance Ministry portfolio, took oaths as the Minister for Economic Policies and Plan Implementation following the reshuffling of ministries. Speaking to the media after assuming duties as the new Minister of Finance, Basil Rajapaksa stated that he believes that the country can overcome its current economic crisis by deriving strength from previous such experiences. The Elections Commission yesterday gazetted the nomination of Basil Rajapaksa as a parliamentarian to fill the seat vacated by the resigning of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peremuna's Nationalist MP Jayantha Katagoda. This morning, Basil Rajapaksa took oaths as the Minister of Finance, a portfolio previously held by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. After the reshuffling of ministries, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was sworn in before the President as the Minister of Economic Policies and Plan Implementation. Minister Basil Rajapaksa then arrived in Parliament and took oaths as a Member of Parliament. The minister then assumed duties at the Ministry of Finance.
මගේ ප්‍රමුඛතාවය මේ රජයේ ජනාධිපති අගමැතිතුමා ඇතුළු රජයේ සියලු දෙනාගේ ප්‍රමුඛතාවය වෙන රටේ පොදු ජනතාවගේ ප්‍රමුඛතාවය තමයි අපේ ප්‍රමුඛතාවය වෙන්නේ. අද මුග දෙනෙක් හිතනවා මේ රට බැරෑරුම් තත්යකට පත් වෙලයි කියලා. අපේ නායක හම්දුරුවොත් ඒ විදිහටම කිව්වා. නමුත් අපි මීට වැඩිය බැරෑරුම් තත්ත්වවලට අපි මුහුණ දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වෙලාවේ රිසර්ව්ස් බැස්ස 1 බිලියන් වලට මම හිතන්නේ 1.2 බිලියන් වලට. ඊට වැඩිය දැන් 3 ගුණයක් විතර තියෙනවා ඔබතුමාලා. ඒක නිසා අපි ධෛර්යමත් වෙන්න ඕන අපිට මේක ගොඩනගන්න පුළුවන්.
Meanwhile, a Gazette notification was issued today placing 27 institutions under the purview of Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa. The institutions are the General Treasury, the Department of Fiscal Policy, the Department of National Budget, the Department of Management Services, the Public Finance Department, the Department of Public Accounts, and the Management Auditing Department. In addition to that, 17 funds have been gazetted under the new minister, including the National Insurance Trust Fund, the Employees Trust Fund, the Kidney Fund, the Buddha Sasana Fund, and the Central Cultural Fund.
අද සේවසකට වැඩි ජනතා විශ්වාසය නව සංයෝගයක රයිනෝ රෝෆිං සහ සීලිං ෂීට්.
International food industry trade consultant Lydia Gayrat says that the decision by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to do away with chemical fertilizer and pesticides and take Sri Lanka fully organic is an amazing step for the EU market and will build confidence among EU consumers who often are doubtful of the actual origins of organic produce. Addressing a webinar on EU market trends for the agri-products sector recently, Gayrat called on all local businesses to publicize the new 100% organic policy change on all their marketing platforms, which she adds will create a huge demand for Sri Lanka's agricultural produce.
Europe leads the world in terms of the size of the organic market we have. So, the fact that Sri Lanka is going to move to 100% organic is really phenomenal. And I would urge your country to be sending press releases out to all of the supermarkets to let them know, because it for supermarket buyers and product developers, that's something really quite exciting, to be able to pass that information on to their consumers. Because one of the things consumers always worry about is when they pick up a product that says organic, and it will always have a higher price. Organic is always more expensive than conventional because, as we all know, it's harder to manage organic products. Consumers always worry, is it really organic? And the fact that your president has decided to be 100% organic will give unbelievable confidence to European consumers that when they see a product is organic and it says country of origin Sri Lanka, they know that it will absolutely be organic. And that is something that will really propel sales of the organic products. And the credibility around that is quite amazing. And I would urge you as a country to use that in all your marketing and your press, your PR, anything you can do in any of your social media, almost to have a statement on any of your business websites. This is what we're doing as a country. It's such unbelievable credibility.
Big 3.
Addressing the 89th plenary meeting of the United Nations Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy, Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the United Nations, Mohan Peiris, called on member nations to arrive at a common consensus rather than allowing groups of states to push their strategies on smaller countries. Further, Ambassador Peiris also called for more work to be done to crack down on hate speech and bigotry being promoted on social media.
We remain concerned of the increasing polarization and normalization of hate speech. In this common fight against terrorism, we need to ensure that we work together and reaffirm consensus, diplomacy, and dialogue in our work before us. A modern and updated strategy cannot be pushed on states nor decided on might or by a group of states, large or small. There is no one-size formula that fits all instances. We must be united and together with a spirit of equity and togetherness, be able to listen to one another, to look for common ground in our larger purpose, to update a strategy to work collectively to confront the menace of terrorism. With the exponential growth of the media, and particularly the rise of social media, while looking at freedom of expression, we must be vigilant that this is not used as a platform for hatred, bigotry, and extremism. We must be more aware and actively seek to prevent the abuse of social media to promote a culture of racism, hate, and intolerance. As we fight terrorism, we must ensure to promote the fourth pillar of the global counter-terrorism strategy of ensuring human rights, the rule of law. In our common fight against terrorists, we should not embrace the lawlessness of the terrorists and must never abandon our common humanity, which is what binds us together and gives us the strength and purpose in our fight against terror.
Kotalawala Defence University Bill was presented in Parliament today for its second reading. Members of the opposition, however, took aim at the bill, claiming that it would lead to the privatization of the country's higher education sector as well as the militarization of universities. Meanwhile, the rejection of the amendment proposed by the opposition to be included in the Convention Against Torture, Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment Amendment Bill was also taken up in Parliament today.
බුද්ධිපූර් රහමන් මන්ත්‍රීතුමා යෝජනාවක් ගෙනාවා මෙතුමාගේ සංශෝධනය අනුව සිරමැදිරීට සිරකරුවන් පමණක් නෙවෙයි ඩීఓ ගහලා ඉන්න අයටත් මැජිස්ත්‍රාත්වරයාට හමු වෙන්න අවස්ථාවක් දෙන්න කියලා. ගරු ඇමැතුමා මේ සංශෝධනය ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කෙරුවා. හැබැයි එතුමාගේ කතාවේ මෙහෙම කියනවා. ගරු කතානායකතුමනි ඒකෙන් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ සිරමැදිරීට පමණක් සීමා කරන්නේ නැතුව සැකකරුවන් රඳවාගෙන තිබෙන ස්ථාන වලට ගිහිල්ලා පරීක්ෂා කරන්න කියලා. ඉතින් මෙතුමාගේ කතාවේ තියෙනවා ඩීఓ ගහපුවාත් බලන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. අපි සංශෝධනය
මම පනතක් ගෙනවා ගේනකොට ඒක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරලා නීතියට අනුව ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ එතුමන්ලා යම් කිසි යෝජනාවක් කරලා තියෙනවා. මම ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයේත් එක්කත් සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඒක අපි පිළිනොගන්න තීරණය කරා. ඊට වඩා මොකද රීති ප්‍රශ්නයක්. But if you want to go for a interpretation whether that includes a pleasure detention, let the court decide on that. In interpreting, my speech could be a persuasive thing for the court to make a decision. So we have not accepted their input or the amendment suggested. But I stand by my speech, I stand by the statute. Let the court decide what I meant.
I'm thankful that the Minister of Justice says he stands by what he said. But in interpreting, only in the constitutional interpretation, debates in the Parliament can be taken as relevant. On other matters, debates in Parliament can't be taken as relevant. So your speech won't be relevant. That is why we wanted that clarification. You have to make that clarification in the act itself.
We have brought a statute and there was suggestion from the honourable member of the opposition that is entitled to. And similarly, as the government party, we are also entitled to accept it or not. We have not accepted it. Matter ends there.
Meanwhile, the proposed Kotalawala University bill was subjected to heavy criticism today, with the opposition claiming that it would pave way for privatization of the higher education sector and the militarization of universities.
කොතලාවල ආරක්ෂක විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය තුළින් උසස් අධ්‍යාපනය සඳහා වෙනත් රටවලට ගලා යන විදේශ විනිමය රට තුළ රඳවා ගැනීමටත් විදේශීය සිසුන් තුළින් විදේශ විනිමය උපයා ගැනීමටත් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය සමත් වී තිබෙනවා. නව කෙටුම්පතින් යෝජිත පාලක මණ්ඩලයේහි දැක්වෙන ආරක්ෂක මණ්ඩලික ප්‍රධානී හැරුණු කොට අනිකුත් සමාජිකයන් සියල්ලම වර්තමානයේ පාත්නා කළමනාකරණ මණ්ඩලයේ සමාජිකයන් වෙනවා.
මේක යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව කාලේ ගෙනහපු වෙලාවෙත් ඒ ඇතිවෙච්ච විරෝධය හින්දා තමයි ඒක එහෙමම යට ගියේ. ඒතකොට ඒ ගැසට් පත්‍රයේ අමුමම එහෙම් පිටිම තමයි අද මේ ගෙඩිය පිටින් ගේන්නේ. හමුදා විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක මූල ධර්මයට අපි විරුද්ධ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා තමයි සර් ජෝන් කොතලාවල ඇකඩමිය මුලින්ම ඇති කළේ. නමුත් හේතු තුනක් තියෙනවා අපිට මේ පනතට එකඟ වෙන්න බැරි KNDU හි ස්වයං නියාමනය ශිෂ්‍යුන්ට ලැබෙන අධ්‍යාපනයේ ගුණාත්මක භාවයට දීර්ඝ කාලීන බැලුවොත් අපි හිතනවා මොකද අධ්‍යාපනයේ නියාමනයයි අධ්‍යාපනයේ සැපයුම්කරු පැහැදිලිව වෙනස් විය යුතුයි. මේ වර්තමාන පනත් කෙටුම්පත විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ප්‍රතිපාදන කොමිෂන් සභාවේ විෂය පටියට පිටින් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයක් පිහිටු වීමයි. එය නියාමනය කිරීම සඳහා අපට ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යාංශය මත පමණක් රඳවා ගැනීම සුදුසු නැහැ කියන එක තමයි අපේ මතය.
ගරු චමාල් රාජපක්ෂ අමාත්‍යතුමා ඉදිරිපත් කරපු පනතේ වගන්තියක් තියෙනවා. 1978 අංක 16 දරන විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පනත මේ කොතලාවල ආරක්ෂක විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට බලපාන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. හැබැයි ඒකෙන් ගම්ම්‍ය වන්නේ නැහැ. විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ප්‍රතිපාදන කොමිෂන් සභාවට කිසිම නියාමනය කිරීමේ කාර්යභාරයක් නැහැ කියලා. කොතලාවල ආරක්ෂක විශ්වවිද්‍යාලය කියන්නේ මේ රටේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පද්ධතියේ අන්තර්ගත කොටසක්. ඒකෙන් බැහැර වෙච්ච වෙනම ගමනක් යන ආයතනයක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක ක්‍රියාත්මක වන්නේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ප්‍රතිපාදන කොමිෂන් සභාවේ කාර්යභාරයට යටත්වයි. ඒක ඉවත් කළා නැහැ. ඉවත් කරන්නත් බෑ.
More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
ගෙදරකට තේ හදනවා කියන්නේ වෙනම වැඩ. එක එක්කිනාගේ පදම වෙනස්. මැලිබන් තේ ගෙදර පදමට තේ.
Welcome back. In more news, even though the overall number of PCR and rapid antigen tests conducted in the country yesterday and the day before have been lower than the previous days, over 10% of the results received have produced positive results. Over 1,200 COVID cases were confirmed from a total of 10,300 PCR and rapid antigen tests conducted yesterday. The Ministry of Health has cited the reason for low test numbers as reporting delays caused by low numbers of health sector staff reporting to work despite the end of trade union action on Tuesday.
Sri Lankan health authorities are currently battling a third wave of alpha variant COVID-19 infections. Amidst this, health authorities are also on high alert about the Delta variant of COVID-19 that has so far been found in 19 people already. Further, the announcement of a new variant of interest called the Lambda variant, which has now been detected in 31 countries, has raised fear of its entry into Sri Lanka, which may complicate an already critical situation. However, the Ministry of Health says that despite all measures being taken to prevent its entry, detecting cases in Sri Lanka is an inevitability that cannot be prevented.
We know that just like the other variants which were originated in different parts of the world has finally arrived in Sri Lanka, and therefore even this variation could arrive in Sri Lanka on one day or the other. So therefore the Ministry of Health is vigilant, and we are constantly monitoring the presence of any variants in the country using sample testing, and thereby we will detect them definitely as early as possible, although we are not expecting such thing if it comes to Sri Lanka. However, what is most important at this moment is all these variants are susceptible to the health measures that we are taking. So therefore, public is requested to ensure that health measures are adhered to always and all the time by everyone, so that whatever the variant that comes could be defeated.
In the meantime, the overall number of PCR tests and rapid antigen tests conducted in the country yesterday and the day before has significantly declined. According to the Health Promotion Bureau, 6,403 PCR tests and 3,897 rapid antigen tests were carried out yesterday, while 5,631 PCR and 2,433 rapid antigen tests were carried out the day before. Deputy Director General of Education and Research at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hemantha Herath, attributed the decline in numbers to reporting delays caused by low health staff members despite the end of trade union action on Tuesday. However, he believes that in contrast to the tests reported, the number of tests actually conducted in the field is higher than what it is being reported currently, and reassured that the errors will be rectified as soon as possible. However, despite the reduced number of PCR and rapid antigen tests reported yesterday, a total of 1,243 COVID-19 infections were confirmed across all 25 districts. The Western Province topped the list of reported cases with 574, indicating the numbers are on the decline. Within the province, the Kalutara district confirmed the most cases with 223, while 183 infections were reported from Colombo and 168 from Gampaha. The province with the lowest infection numbers as of yesterday was the Northwestern Province with just 37. In the district breakdown, Vaunia had the lowest cases, reporting just 3. In addition, 14 foreign arrivals were also part of yesterday's overall daily caseload. As for today, a total of 1,223 new COVID-19 cases have been confirmed so far. Meanwhile, the recovery of 1,453 COVID-19 patients today raised the total recoveries so far to 239,584. In other developments, the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreak announced the isolation of HARASGAMA and AGALAWATTA areas in the MATALE district from 6 am today. The centre also announced that 5 Gramanildara divisions in the Batiklo district and 2 in the MATALE district were brought out of isolation as well.
The Health Ministry last evening halted the administration of the PFIZER vaccine as the second dose of the ASTRAZENECA vaccine after confirming that Sri Lanka will receive 1.4 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine through the World Health Organization's COVAX facility. Commenting on the decision, Deputy Director General of Education and Research at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hemantha Herath, says that the decision was taken as experts believe it would be more appropriate to administer the same vaccines as second doses.
Sri Lanka tried out something new in its vaccine rollout yesterday, with its first foray into mixing and matching of COVID-19 vaccines. Accordingly, people aged over 55 who previously received their first AstraZeneca vaccine dose early on in the rollout were requested to turn up at vaccination centres in Colombo through SMS alerts to receive the PFIZER vaccine as their second dose. Beginning with the Colombo municipality, the government's target was to vaccinate around 5,000 residents in the city. However, the health officials were only able to administer only 2,171 as the public attendance was lower than expected. In the meantime, the Ministry of Health decided to halt the PFIZER mix and match vaccinations last evening after confirming the receipt of 1.4 million doses of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines through the World Health Organization's COVAX facility in the third week of July.
Technically, it is appropriate if the same vaccine can be given as second dose for those who have got a first dose. So that is why this decision was taken. Those who are likely to get this second dose will be informed by the Colombo Municipal Council using the same method that they used to give the other vaccines, and please wait such message so that you can get the second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine.
Following the decision, regional epidemiologist for Colombo Dr. Dinuka Guruge took to social media to inform the public that all appointments scheduled for today were cancelled. Meanwhile, as of last evening, 2,356,130 people had received their first Sinopharm vaccine dose, while 921,702 of this number received both. As for the Sputnik vaccine, the number of first dose receivers remained the same at 114,795, while the number of second doses administered increased to 14,452 after 24 people got their second shots yesterday. In the meantime, 80 people were given second doses of AstraZeneca vaccine yesterday, increasing second dose numbers to 384,374. The number of AstraZeneca first dose receivers remains at 925,242.
Over 40 people were arrested today for violating quarantine guidelines by organizing protests in several areas across the country. The demonstrations protested several issues, including the proposed General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University Bill, then a recent fuel price hike and fertilizer shortages.
33 people were arrested by police today for staging a protest at the Polduva roundabout in Battaramulla in violation of health and safety guidelines that strictly forbid such public gatherings given the current situation. The protest was organized by the Inter-University Students' Federation, the Ceylon Teachers' Union and the Frontline Socialist Party against the General Sir John Kotalawala National Defence University Bill that was taken up in Parliament today. Police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana stated that among the arrested were the General Secretary of the Teachers' Union Joseph Stalin, Venerable Ratkarawe Jinarathanathera and one other member of the Buddhist clergy. In another development, 2 former provincial councillors of the People's Liberation Front and 11 others were also arrested by the police for carrying out a protest in Akurasa today. The protest was launched by the JVP in opposition of several ongoing matters which included the fuel price hike and the fertilizer issue. Meanwhile, the members of the Samagi Janabalavegia too took to the streets today, accusing the government of suppressing the people's right to protest. Joined by opposition leaders Sajid Premadasa and several SJB lawmakers, the protest was staged near the main entrance of the parliament earlier this morning. The demonstrations were held against the quarantine order issued by the Director General of Health Services, banning public meetings and protests as part of efforts to minimize the spread of COVID-19.
Water supply to several areas in Colombo will be suspended for 21 hours this weekend for essential maintenance work to be carried out, the National Water Supply and Drainage Board announced today. Accordingly, the water cut will come into effect from 9 a.m. on Saturday until 6 a.m. on Sunday. The areas that will be affected will be Colombo 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. Further, water supply to the Colombo 4 and 12 areas will be under low pressure during this time period, and the Water Board added. We'll return after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. Welcome back in your business news. The Central Bank's Monetary Board has again decided to maintain its standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate at their current levels of 4.50% and 5.50% respectively. Speaking at a virtual briefing, Governor Professor W.D. Lakshman expressed high optimism that Sri Lanka's economic growth is on the path to recovery, stating that notable growth is expected in the end of this year and that real sector expectations remain good for 2022 as well. Speaking at a virtual media briefing following the Monetary Board meeting held yesterday, Central Bank Governor Professor W.D. Lakshman announced that the Sri Lankan economy recorded better than expected growth in the first quarter of 2021.
On foreign debt service obligation and the foreign reserve position, the government and the central bank have taken several steps to ensure the impeccable debt service record of the country amidst the most challenging times. COVID-19 has affected inflows from tourism and many investment inflows, and measures have been taken to limit non-essential outflows. We understand that some segments of the economy may get affected due to these measures, but these measures are taken for the betterment of the country as a whole for a short period of time. Even while meeting sizable debt service obligations, the official reserves were maintained in June 2021, unchanged from the levels that were observed in the previous month. And I would like to reiterate that I am confident that there will be a gradual improvement to our external sector situation over time. On economic activity, we are pleased to observe positive developments on many fronts, particularly during the first quarter. Based on information available such as the index of industrial production, on agricultural sector performance, trade and bank credits, a better than previously expected growth performance is expected for the first quarter.
The central bank governor also expressed optimism for a notable recovery in the last quarter of this year based on positive data.
The COVID-related lockdowns are gradually removed, and with the vaccination drive in full force, we expect a notable recovery towards normalcy by the last quarter of the year. In the real sector, we are very confident that by about the next year, we will achieve substantial positive developments and changes.
The old share price index gained 2.23 points to end at 7,811.61, while the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 2,955.88 after gaining 19.47 points. Market turnover was 1.2 billion rupees. Meanwhile, the rupee closed stronger at 199 rupees and 90 cents against the US dollar today after closing at 202 rupees and 89 cents yesterday. Now let's have a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.